Another of the measures that's in relation to tort reform, as a House bill this time, we spent a great deal of time talking about that in the Missouri Senate this week.
Yeah, what we call the expert witness bill. It has to do with what is termed, if you're an attorney or familiar with court proceedings, with what's called the Daubert standard in terms of qualifying witnesses to give expert testimony in a court hearing. Most of the other states, a large number, I don't remember the exact number of other states, have the Daubert standard. It's the same standard that's used in federal court. Missouri does not. Missouri has always used a different standard. Virtually anyone that you wanted to hire to bring in and say they were an expert could be your expert on an issue. That has created some problems in terms of a hired gun, so to speak, in terms of for witnesses in expert testimony. I worked for a while to try to get that Daubert standard imposed in Missouri, and have done it in years past, but not been successful in getting it through the entire process. But yesterday we did take up the bill. I think we ended up with no amendments on that bill, no Senate amendments, and then it will go to the governor's desk. And the governor has been supportive of those tort reform measures. He understands that Missouri is labeled by some court evaluators as a judicial hellhole. This would be one of the ways that companies and individuals who are in the courts can have a better sense of what kind of testimony they'll be hearing from experts. That these experts are truly qualified, that they've been qualified in more than one arena, and that a judge, if necessary, has reviewed their qualifications to make sure that they truly are experts and equipped to offer that testimony. So we were happy to see us pass that. I'm going to be pleased to see that become law.
Another House bill this week, another amount of time spent on that, and that's another bill that aims to help those who are union employees.
That's called Paycheck Protection. It's a protocol for workers to be able to sign off on their union membership and to agree that they do want to continue to be union members, to have a greater role in the election of union leaders, just a number of different things that I think make it indeed a paycheck protection measure for individuals that either don't want their dues to go to unions or they don't want those dues to be used in certain ways that are opposed to their personal worldviews. We were not able to successfully perfect that yet. That bill's still in the works. I'm sure we will be taking it back up at some time after spring break, and we'll see it again, but hopeful that we'll also be able to perfect that bill and move it to the governor.
Another of the measures that received some floor time this week on the Senate, and that's another House bill. This one relates to agriculture in this case.
That's an important bill. It has to do with a tragic situation, particularly down in the southeast portion of Missouri, where there was some significant misapplication of herbicides, almost inestimable damage done to crops and trees. There's going to be some major setbacks for some individuals down there in agriculture. One of the things that came out after that was that the fines for that type of a violation in terms of proper application of these chemicals was very small, and that the profit margin for the application was enough that some of those who were applying these herbicides felt like they were better off just paying the fine and doing what they pleased in terms of the application. So the concern there was that those fines should be higher. They should be a deterrent to those who would otherwise ignore proper techniques, and this bill raises those fines significantly so that if someone deliberately misapplies a herbicide and damages another farmer's crops, there'll be a significant fine that they'll have to pay, and that should help significantly in that particular problem.
You received an unexpected visit, I guess would be safe to say, from some folks this week.
You know, Senate Bill 98, which is an education committee, that's the bill, student privacy and safety bill that tries to ensure the protection of our public school children when they're in a state of undress, whether we're talking a shower room or a dressing room or even a restroom. There was a group of, I guess they call themselves transgender, very young, some of them I'm sure elementary school age, some of them were probably high school age, very vocal and pretty confrontational that came by yesterday. I tried to talk with them for some time until they became so vulgar and profane that we felt like it was time to terminate that conversation. It really grieves me when I see these young people, because we used to have a little phrase when my children were growing up. We called it PPDD, pick your path and determine your destination. We used to frequently remind our children of that when they were making decisions about how they were going to behave, what kind of friends they were going to have, and other things. And when I look at these young people and how they behaved yesterday, and some of them I think were accompanied even by their parents. I understand they were downstairs on the third floor and were blocking a restroom and were escorting those who appeared to be young ladies into the men's restroom and just doing things as much as they could be deliberately confrontational. They've picked a path that is likely to be very destructive to their futures. It really concerns me that so many of those who who should be taking responsibility for the directions that they're picking should be warning them more thoroughly about where that path leads, what destinations are at the end of that path. That really does concern me. We think about family and the importance of family and how destructive that kind of behavior can be, not just to their own family, but to the possibility of families in the future. When I think of the need that everyone has to be recognized as an individual and have that personal identity, and yet here's a group that really don't identify with any of the groups that are around them other than just this very tiny group who all agree that they should be able to pretend that they're whatever they want, regardless of what the facts. When I consider if I wanted to pretend I was 12 years old and wanted to believe that and wanted to begin to attend the 6th grade in elementary school or wanted to go on some 12-year-old camping trip or something else or just participate in 12-year-old events, there would be folks that would wonder if I was not mentally ill because my being 12 years old would be purely in my mind. It would be very clear that physiologically that was just not the case. And I think whenever we encourage people who are in that situation, the mind driving beyond the senses, and controvert to the senses, I don't think we're setting them on a path that has a positive destination. And so I was disappointed. I was able to talk with some of them for a little while until they just became so unruly that there was no possibility of further discussion. But it does concern me that we're not doing more to try to help that group get in touch with reality.